Hey guys, Jason here in my garage. Today I'm going to do something completely different than what I've done before. This is not going to be really specifically Corvette related or truck related or product review related. It's going to be car related, but it's going to be me just doing some talking here. So if you're expecting the usual stuff that I do, feel free to check out my other channels or stick around in the future when I release another video. This is going to be, again, like I said, a little different. It's unscripted. Other than what I've got floating around up here that I'm getting out right now, this is it. It's just going to be me talking. But I really hope that I can reach a few of you about this, and a lot of you are going to know what I'm talking about here. I want to talk about thanking or honoring those who influence us to be car enthusiasts. Now, I'm just going to say this from here on out. I'm a car guy. That's what I call myself. I'm a car guy because I'm a guy. That's how I think of myself, and I like cars, so I'm a car guy. You can call yourself car girl or car dude or car person or car whatever, but I'm going to refer to myself from this point on as a car guy because that's what I hate to use the word, but that's what I identify as. So I'm a car guy, and everybody who is a car person or a car enthusiast, as far as I know, I've never met anybody that was a car enthusiast that just became one. They just became lovers of cars. You know, that they didn't have anybody else that influenced them. I've never met that person. If you're that person, I think you're pretty rare. Everybody that I know that's also a car enthusiast has had a mentor or an influencer. You know, usually for a lot of us, it's dad. But it can also be an uncle or a brother or a buddy from school or childhood or something, or your neighbor, but somebody influences you to be a car enthusiast. But this video is about making sure that you take the time to honor or even thank your greatest influencers as a car enthusiast. For me, mine was my dad. Here's a picture of my dad when he was in his early 20s. And he's standing by his 56 Chevy. And yeah, I know it looks pretty rough and everything, but at the time, that was the fastest car in the Tri-County Lansing area, Lansing, Michigan area. Dad was pretty good with cars. He fabricated his own headers, his own traction bars. He set the gearing up so the car would lift the fronts off in 3 out of the 4 gears. It was a beast. It had a 327 in it, and the thing would rev to the moon. You know, it was just unbelievable where the red line was on that. And it was pretty rough, like I said. There was no door panels on the inside. In fact, there was no door handles on the inside. The doors were just stripped bare, and if I wanted to get out, Dad had to reach over and grab the linkage mechanism that normally the door handle would move and pull it so I could get out, because I was just a little kid. I was just a little kid when I'd ride in that car. And speaking of riding in that car when I was just a little kid, I remember this pretty vividly. Dad taking me for a ride in that car, and I don't even think the car had seatbelts. I mean, we're talking 1976, 77 maybe, give or take, was the last time I rode in that car. And I remember this rather vividly. He'd push in the clutch and put it in first gear, and he'd look over at me, 5-year-old kid, give or take, in the passenger seat, and he'd say, "You ready, buddy?" And I'd say, "Yeah, Dad." And he'd put the accelerator straight to the floor, and that car would tack up so fast. I remember that he'd done it with me so many times that I kind of knew when it was going to happen. He wouldn't lift off the clutch quickly. He'd just slip his foot off the clutch. And it felt like the whole world was coming undone on the other side of that firewall. And it would violently lift the fronts of the tires and the front wheels. And it, again, was so loud, but it was so exhilarating. It was so fun. And Dad could power shift like nobody I've met in my lifetime. He was smooth as butter. It was almost like a modern day 10-speed automatic transmission. It was just so smooth and consistent. He didn't miss a beat. And the fronts would come up again, and he'd power shift again. And the part I don't remember, but he'd always tell me, he said I would laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And that was my dad in his car. And that was where it kind of started. And then also right around that time, he'd take me to US 131 Dragway in Martin, Michigan, where I learned to have heroes. Big Daddy Don Garlitz, Tom Mongoose McEwen, Don the Snake Perdome, Shirley Muldowney, Bob Glidden, Jungle Jim. I don't know if he was still racing then, but they became my heroes in the hot rod magazines that would be scattered around the house. Dad was such a great influence on my life when it came to cars. And if it weren't for that influence, I'd have no reason to be talking to you right now about this. I wouldn't be sitting in my garage. I wouldn't have my car behind me. I wouldn't have my tools over here. My life would be so different without that influence from my dad. And I'll never forget when I bought my first really cool performance vehicle. It was a 1996 Camaro SS. This is when SLP was still doing second sticker options on it. It was number 259. And it was my first performance vehicle. Up and before then I had front wheel drive vehicles and little peppy, GM cars. But and I took it over to my dad's place, and I think it was December 12th of 1995. And I took it over to show my dad, brand new Camaro, brand new. And he said, let me take me for a ride in it. So I took him for a ride in it, and I was, my brand new Camaro, so gingerly about it and everything. And then we got to a point, he's like, all right, pull over, let me drive. And I said, okay, Dad. He'd never driven a car quite like that before. He'd never driven a 6-speed car. He'd never driven a 4th-gen Camaro. He had a 3rd-gen Camaro that he and I would take turns driving with. That was an automatic. The first moment that he shifted from first gear to 2nd gear in my new Camaro was a power shift. And then 2nd to 3rd was a power shift. And 3rd to 4th was a power shift. Just as buttery smooth and consistent as when I was a little kid. Like, he never lost the touch. And I carried that admiration for my dad, until the moment you're looking at me talking right now. And I'm not making this video to gain sympathy or to get views or anything like that. I don't mean to be dramatic about this, but I'm sharing this with you because I want everybody to know that it's important to thank those who inspired you to be a car enthusiast. Not that it's necessary, because they didn't influence you on car stuff because they wanted recognition or thanks out of it. They did it because it made them feel good. That's why I make the videos that I do. I think I might have already mentioned this in this video. It makes me feel good to hopefully reach somebody and get you guys to enjoy your cars more. So understand, I'm not making this video for any reason other than just to say, hey, if you haven't thought about it, give them a quick thanks, give them a quick shout, and tell them thanks. It'd make you feel good. Dad had a stroke and a seizure at the end of June of last year. And he died December 17th, 2022, just before Christmas. I got to tell him thanks. I said this would be unscripted. I wasn't kidding. Sorry, guys. I'm just gonna leave this raw and unedited. I don't really give a damn. When he was taking his last breaths, I said what I wanted to say. And among that was, thanks for being my car influencer. I don't, as a guy that makes YouTube videos, I don't like the term YouTuber. That just sounds juvenile. And I really don't like the word influencer too. I look at myself as just a car guy that likes to make videos and talk a lot. Case in point here, but I got to thank my dad, for a lot of things. But namely, what I live for, what we all enjoy, what we all understand. If you're watching this video, what we all understand. So you know what? I'm gonna kind of maybe wrap here on this one. Wrap it up with this. I'll just say this. You know, whoever that influencer was who turned you into a car enthusiast, don't be ashamed to. Next time, you know, you're turning wrenches together, just to stop and say, hey, you know what? I really appreciate you being an influencer for the car lifestyle, or car enthusiast, making me a car guy or car girl or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. And I also want to thank you guys for sticking through this conversation that kind of went a little different than what I thought it would. But again, not for views or sympathy or anything like that. Just to know that somebody cared enough to be a car influencer to you, a mentor, if you will. And so you should care enough just to give them a quick thanks. Hey, you know what? Thanks for this. Because I love the car lifestyle. I love my car life. I love my car. I love everything about it. And I love my dad. So pay it forward. Be a mentor, car mentor, and a car enthusiast for somebody else too. All right, that's it. I'll be in my. I'll see you in my next video. A little more back to normal, but thanks for watching.